Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Welcome to the Cornhusker Corner with Blake.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
And Brooks.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
And you better bet your bottom dollar that these two brothers know how to handle business.
Here is a hand up to Thunder, who gives it back to Mike Stokes. He's going to throw it. He's got a man out.
All right, welcome to Cornhusker Corner, where there's no place like
this podcast.
This podcast as it plays again.
And I have to adjust my mic right as we start. Professional.
So we are the Cornhusker Corner. Don't remember to like and subscribe to the channel. We like doing these. If you like listening to them, if you don't, we don't really care. We like doing it anyway.
If you don't like it, let us know. Let us know how bad we are. Let us know how much you hate us. Let us know how much our team sucks. Let us know whatever, man. Just interact with us. That's what we want, you know. Yeah. And also, if you are so inclined, go ahead and give us a follow on Twitter at Cornhusker Corner. If you follow us, I'll go ahead and give you a follow back. I don't know how long that'll go, but it'll go for as long as I want it to. So if you follow us, I'll give you a follow back. Also, follow our Instagram, Cornhusker Corner. So there we go. It is a jam-packed episode, my friend. We took a little bit of a holiday break. We were pretty busy during the break with family and with Thanksgiving stuff. So we're a little bit back. We're a little bit backed up on Husker stuff, and so we have a lot to talk about. So let's get right into it, man. We beat Iowa the other day. That needs to be addressed. There's a lot after that we need to talk about, of course, but that deserves us talking about it for a little bit. We beat Iowa the other day, and boy, did it feel good. Did it feel good. I know you were in a position where during the game where you could only loosely follow it. Did you get around to watching the game?
No, I watched it. I watched all of it.
Oh, you watched all of it?
Yeah, I watched all of it. We went out to dinner, but I had it playing on my phone the entire time. So I was only I was only loosely following my conversations. But yeah, I was watching. Especially we went up, 17-0 going in a half, and I was like, I can't miss this. Yeah, I just can't. And then we got back from dinner, and it was funny. It was 24 to it was just at was it 3 or 7?
24 to nothing. Well, it's 24 to nothing at the fourth quarter or something.
Yeah,
or
so
the beginning of the third quarter. Sorry.
Yeah, so we got home at the beginning of the fourth quarter, and my father-in-law was like, this is looking good, and I was like, I just don't underestimate it. We have the worst luck, and it's not even like the team. Like sometimes they get the yips, and sometimes the other team is like, "Oh, it's the fourth quarter. It's time to come back."
Yeah, as much as I hate to say it, you can never underestimate this team's capacity to F things up. You really can't. Because they've proven it to us time and time again. And if we know that, they're thinking about it too, right? So they've proven it to themselves time and time again. It's kind of like when you're trying to work out and you quit over and over again, right? And then it becomes harder and harder to work out because you have a quitter's mentality. Not that they have a quitter's mentality, but they have lost games. So unfortunately, they do have a loser's mentality just by osmosis because that's what they've been in. So it was great to see them hoist that trophy at the end of the game. Some specifics with the game, I was surprised with how much we were able to beat Iowa deep on offense. We really gashed them. I mean, they hadn't really been gashed like that all year, save maybe or definitely Ohio State. But that was a good defense. I mean, that if I was watching that game from an Iowa fan's perspective, it actually reminded me a lot of our games this year, where it was like one side of the ball you can tell is good, and the other side of the ball is just terrible and not providing any support to that side. So they really don't have a prayer, and that's kind of what happened in this game.
Yeah, and it's funny. Something I noticed, especially in regards to that in the play calling, we went up 24-0, right? And our offensive strategy that was working, it was just like, we're playing with the lead. Let's just milk some clock. And so that kind of helped them get back into the game a little bit because we went to stuff that wasn't working, like the run game. Like it was okay, but that's not what got us in that.
It wasn't even okay, man. We had 35 carries for 50 yards. That's not okay.
You're right. That's not even okay. But that wasn't how we were beating them, you know. And you're not going to go out, throw 3 incompletions, and have 10 seconds run off the clock. So it was smart to do that, but that's kind of something I noticed. That's kind of lent them to stopping us and getting us back in the game, you know.
Right. Like we got the ball back with 2 minutes left, and Iowa had 2 timeouts.
Yeah.
Which really means, I mean, like in a normal football game with normal teams, now that's not what this was. Obviously, we all witnessed it. But in a normal football game with normal teams, you get the ball back with 2 minutes left and the other team has 2 timeouts. That's a first down. You know, you got to get a first down and pretty much you're good. Because if you can run the ball, then it's going to force them to take a couple of timeouts here and there. And unfortunately, like I said, 35 carries, 50 yards. We couldn't run the ball. But boy, did Trey Palmer have a day. And yes, boy, did were we able to beat them over the top. Casey Thompson had I'd say one of his best games of the year, which is saying something because I mean, he was injured. He's detailed that. But I'd say as efficiency-wise, maybe not numbers-wise. Numbers-wise, his best game of the year was probably Georgia Southern, even though we lost. But efficiency-wise, he probably had one of his best games of the year, and he looked good. He missed a couple guys here and there, which means we could have scored even more. The Oliver Martin one stands out to me when he had Oliver Martin streaking, and he just overthrew him by a little bit. Oliver still almost caught it. But I thought he played well in the offense.
He played well, and so Trey declared for the draft. I mean,
he did.
It was one of those things that, like, you know, a new coach is coming in. You know, if he had another game that showed that he could do it again, I thought he was going to go like he had at the Purdue game. I mean, and so he had another day like that, and you know, I don't feel bad at all. He gave us gave us some great plays, and he needs to go get paid. I
mean, he was the brightest spot on a terrible team. And you know, you and I are more nuanced because we've watched every play of every game. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think we were a terrible team. I just think we played terrible in certain moments of the season, and it really hurt us, and we were really unorganized. But he was the brightest spot on a terrible team. And he's got to take advantage of that. He broke records this year. He had the single season receiving yard record at Nebraska, which just shows you that we've never really been a passing school because the record's like just over 1,000 yards, which is nothing to scoff at, but it's not 21st century numbers. It's just not for a record for a school. So Trey declared for the draft, but I still want to harp on a couple of things. The defense, man, they played so good, and you know. It's Iowa, and their quarterbacks, look, their quarterbacks are so bad. Okay,
really bad.
I feel, you know, it's funny. I saw Cade McNamara, the quarterback for Michigan, backup quarterback this year, was their starter last year, enter the transfer portal, or is planning on entering the transfer portal, and that feels like a fit, doesn't it? Cade McNamara in Iowa, because he is a highly efficient quarterback. He's not bad. He won't give up the game for you, but he's not going to light the world on fire. He'd fit their system perfectly. But anyway, their guys aren't even game managers. They're horrible game managers. They can't make a throw. And I'm not trying to be demeaning to the guys, but man.
Not. I mean, Petrus is just awful. And when the other guy came in, I was just like, you know, here's another dude that's going to come in and, you know, another backup quarterback that's going to beat us. But he was bad too. And that's why Petrus was the starter, and they all saw that. But, you know, the defense played well. And I don't want to take anything away from them, but that offense is just horrible.
It is. Their offensive line couldn't make up for it either, because if they had any sort of athleticism in the backfield at all, like, I feel like their offensive line would be all right. But we were just penetrating constantly. Once we realized blitz the house and they can't do anything about it, that's what we did for the rest of the game. And the numbers showed it. I mean, last I checked, we had like 4 or 5 sacks in that game. And Garrett had a fumble recovery that was followed off of a sack by Ativa Maga Clements. Caleb Tanner had a sack. I believe O'Shawn had a sack at one point. And he was just being a dog. O'Shawn was really, really being a dog at the end of that game. And the thing about it, the reason I'm impressed with our defense is because we had to rely on them at the end of that game.
Yeah.
And they really showed up for us. I mean, the game ended with a pick by Kolarvik. And I tweeted at the beginning of the game, it's so funny, man. I had horrible expectations for this game.
Go ahead. And 2 picks that could have sealed the game that were dropped.
Oh yeah, yeah.
From a dude that had a lights out game. But,
yeah,
just
dude, he played. What was it? Newsome? Yeah, he played his best game of the year, dude. He looked great out there. No, I at the beginning of the game when we forced it through, or I think we forced it 3 and out, and then we drove down the field on our first possession and came up with nothing. I think that's how it started. And I said, since Nebraska won't be going to a bowl game this year, might as well think of a name for this game versus Iowa. I'm thinking the hashtag punt bowl. And literally right as I pressed send on that tweet was the deep ball completion to Trey, touchdown. Like literally 2 seconds after I sent it. And I was like, delete. That was that take is already cold before it came. Yeah, dude, it was actually a fairly entertaining game, especially for the first half. But yeah, man, congratulations to the Huskers. It warmed my heart seeing them hoist that trophy at the end.
And it felt really good to see how butthurt the Iowa fans are. They act like they just got beat by, they got at like Georgia Southern. Right. Because, they've had our number since we've gotten the Big Ten, and we've had the more athletic team. And if you followed they've gotten lucky so many times of just either bad clock management with Martinez running out of bounds that would have sealed the game if he would have stayed in. What was that? Scott Frost's second year would have gone to a bowl. And they had to drive a little bit, get a field goal. They kicked our butts a couple times with Riley. But especially in the Frost era, those games have been close, and most of the time we've given it to them. See them all but hurt, and those two fans that were grabbing the trophy. I saw that. Yeah, get out of here!
Get out of here, man! Get out of here! Yeah, you're gonna be petty just one last time before. The best part about it was we played spoiler. Well, but we played spoiler for them. That's why they were so pissed, because they win that game, and they controlled their destiny going into that game. If they won that game, they were going to Indy to get killed by Michigan.
To get killed by Michigan.
What's funny though? That game is going to be Purdue, Michigan, right? And the funny thing is, the West is terrible. I think we all agree on that at this point. But the one team in the West that I feel like is sort of built to maybe make the game a little interesting might be Purdue, just because they can
pretty well.
Yeah, just because they can go over the top. They have an offense that can maybe keep up and maybe make it a 3 or even a 4-quarter game. But I still see Michigan pulling away at some point in that game and winning. So yeah, Big Ten needs to be more competitive, but I believe it is more competitive because we'll get to our coaching hire. But who was our number one guy? Both you and I. It was Luke Fickell. And where is Luke Fickell going? Luke Fickell has gone to Wisconsin. Wisconsin hired Luke Fickell, and that's crazy, man. That's just crazy. I don't want to linger on it too much because I really want to talk about our hire. But I just think Luke Fickell being a guy that we're going to have to play every year now, it's an interesting proposition because both you and I would have said a week ago that Luke Fickell would have been like a, oh my God, home run hire for Nebraska, right? Both you and I said that. So now we have to make good on that, and you got to say it's pretty much an oh my God home run hire for Wisconsin. It is.
No, it is, and I watched a little bit of his press conference, just a little bit, and I will say we'll get into our guy. One of them did it a lot better. One of them seemed a lot more confident, and one of them reminded me of Scott Frost.
I heard some quotes. I didn't see some things. I'm not going to rush to judgment because, look, that's how I'm going to approach our guy, too. I'm not going to rush to judgment either way because at the end of the day, only thing that matters is what happens on Saturdays in fall. And that we don't have any more opportunities to prove anything this year, but that's going to come a year from now. So Luke Fickell's going to have his opportunity to prove, and Matt Rhule is going to have his opportunity to prove it as well because on Friday. On Friday or Saturday. Well, really, it was Wednesday when the most tangible leak happened, and then Saturday was when the release happened, and he went on College Game Day and everything. So Matt Rhule named head coach of the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I have a big long scouting report that I've been writing on him all week, just because I suspected it by about Wednesday, so I started the work. So go ahead and give your thoughts on it, and then we can go through some stuff point by point.
Yeah. So thoughts are. When he either just got fired or was still coaching the Panthers at the Oklahoma game. And we sat in the podcast and talked about it. And it was one of those things that, we were just kind of putting names out there, and Matt Rhule came up, and both of us at the time said, like looking at his, resume, he's a program builder. He's struggled in the NFL, but that was not all that surprising. And both of us at the time even said, like, I don't think that he would come to Nebraska, but if he did, that would be an okay hire. So now that it's happened, I felt a little differently when it did happen, just a little bit. But I do think in total it's a good hire, and only time will tell if, his time in Carolina was the exception to the rule.
Let me just say this. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. But let me just we're going to have a lot of those. And did you hear him out? It was funny because he addressed the crowd on the Unity Walk on the steps, and they started going, Rhule. And you could see him blink for a second because it was like, are they booing me?
Yeah, they booing me.
I thought they were too. And then I realized Rhule, and that's kind of like a thing. And yeah, it was cool. But no, I agree with you. Like, I almost brought up the receipts because it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago, but you remember me saying like well over a month ago that there's just something about Matt Rhule. I have a feeling that he's the guy. Those were my exact words. I just have a feeling that it's gonna be Matt Rhule. And I had that feeling because when I started doing research in Matt Rhule, I'm with Trev. Look, you got to prove it on Saturday, but it really just feels like a fit. And I know a lot of people have perceptions or expectations for what a fit is at Nebraska. And I think that's, and I was sort of there with you. Matt Rhule wasn't my first choice. And when the announcement was made, my first feeling was, crap. All right, we waited all this way, and it's like oatmeal, right? Mm-hmm. And, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like, we all had crazy expectations for this hire, and we waited so long. And I think that's part of the reason why a lot of people had that reaction right off the bat, because we wanted it to be like a payoff hire. Like, dude, we would have been like elated.
Urban Meyer.
Right. We wanted it to be like Urban Meyer, or we would have been elated if it was Luke Fickell. I think a lot of people would have been pretty hype if it was Dion, to be honest. And the funny thing is, and I tweeted this, I said, Matt Rhule wasn't my first choice, but he might be the right choice, and only time will tell. And I got to say, in his press conference today, I mean, he came in and really owned the room, and really, I mean, felt like a preacher's son in there. It felt like a fire and brimstone,
Yeah, he showed a genuine interest in the culture and Nebraska in general. He went out there and he, I mean, it's a press conference, and he didn't like win me over. That'll come on the field. But it gave me a little bit more of like a settled feeling that I'm like, okay, I can see where this goes. Mm-hmm. Because you're right. The one thing that he said there that really, really made me, it was the question, like, did you get any other coaching opportunities? And he gave some answer like, I'm going to say it for recruiting, but I don't like to brag, but yes, I turned down other offers because I wanted to come here, and this is my choice. This was always my choice. So take that what you will. That's who offered him. Who knows?
Right.
That's going to be out there, because once he got fired in Carolina, he was linked with a lot of different jobs.
Yes, he was. So let's get a little background on him. Some of this will be recap, but there's a lot of good info in here. So Matt Rhule, he was probably going to go on TV, which was what a lot of reporters thought. And that's probably why he didn't initially show interest in the job when Jimmy Sexton, his agent, was contacted by the search firm right after he was fired by Carolina. And then you remember about a week ago, and we know today that it was an ongoing process, an ongoing communication process, and they were trying to work through contract details. But my thoughts are, he went on a couple of live TV spots last week, and it sort of hammered it in, like, I don't want to be doing this. You know what I mean? I want to be coaching. I don't want to be on a TV, because it's a whole different thing when you're on a TV set than when you're watching it. It looks so cool when you're watching it, but when you're there, it's like,
No, it's like
you're in the weeds.
I like listening to the podcast, but I don't like doing it.
Get out of here. Get out of here. So probably decided that the TV environment wasn't for him. Wanted back into coaching. Nebraska job is for him. Big Ten guy, ultimately former Penn State linebacker. Even his style of football is privy to the Big Ten. He is a 53-47 run guy with an adaptable RPO system. He's ran that at times, and he's adapted his system to what players he has everywhere he's gone. But generally, he's had a power run aspect to all of his systems where he's been. He plays good defense as well. That's a commonality of his teams in college. He has had success everywhere he has been. He's not a liability on the mic. He generally says the right things. He's not too flashy, but he's shown that he knows how to connect with players at the college level. His experience and he has experience coming in and rebuilding in tumultuous times. So now I'm going to mix in a couple negatives in with this as well. So he's 2-16 versus ranked teams at the FBS level. Now he had 4 opportunities to beat ranked teams at Baylor. The rest came at Temple. So it's a little bit deceptive because it's like, it's a little harder to beat ranked teams when you're at Temple, right? But here's the other thing. He has a .522 record in college football. So that's another blemish that people have pointed out on his resume. But the more you think about it, the more it sort of makes sense. He was 2-10 in his first year at Temple, and he was 1-11 in his first year at Baylor. He was at each place for multiple years, and each year they improved, doubling usually their win total every single year at both places. And then he left early before really the other side of his record could come to fruition because he had built a program. So each of these programs were left in a much better place than he found them. Here's another thing. In Carolina, he showed a lack of connectivity with the players. Needed to, quote, get to know Christian McCaffrey in year 3, his star running back. So that's a little bit of a red flag. But again, NFL. That's sort of what I'm taking all that stuff with. Overall assessment, high floor, potential high ceiling. To me, at worst, he's a 7-win guy. If he can get it going here, it could be fun. 20% chance of crashing and burning, 70% chance of just being okay in the grand scheme of things with some fun here and there, and 10% chance of being really special. I wrote this a couple days ago, and I might alter that. I'm buying it a little more.
And here's the thing. When you read those stats, and I knew the stats when we were doing the coaching search, and you look, and I watched extensively both of those teams just out of being a college football fan. The Temple teams that he was coaching, Houston was really good at the time, so I watched the American Conference a lot. So I watched a lot of his teams. Hassan Reddick was on one of his Temple teams, I believe, and that guy's on the Eagles now, and he's a beast. Side note, squirrel. But no, so I watched a lot of his teams, and they were always very well coached. And some of the criticisms, he doesn't win, the against really, really good teams. He's like 0-11 versus top 10, top 25 teams.
It's 2-16 versus top 25.
2-16 versus top 25.
But like I said, he had 4 opportunities to beat a top 25 team at Baylor, and the rest came at Temple.
Yeah. So
doesn't excuse it. I'm just saying it puts it in a different context.
It doesn't excuse it. And his body of work at both of those places, again, not a lot. You can understand leaving both of those places for the opportunities that he got. Too. So, is he here for the long haul? Who knows? Mm-hmm. But I think in year 1, because you look at the totals of wins in his first year at Baylor and Temple, those places were absolute dumpster fires. They were getting blown out. They were terrible, absolutely awful. That is not the Nebraska team that he is inheriting. No. He is inheriting a lot of skill. If he can retain a lot of these players, which sounds like he wants to, it sounds like one of the reasons he came here was because he saw the potential and said, I can do something with this. Mm-hmm. And we've been saying that about like the right coach all along. Mm-hmm. Like you can see it. You can see it. It's coaching. It's not the players.
Right.
And so I think he's in a really good position to at least show major improvements in year 1 compared to his other college,
100%.
100%. So we'll see.
I think the number one statistic that I found that was most interesting to me that probably points out why he was successful at both of those places, Temple and Baylor, is this. So it's a comparison of one of Scott Frost's recruiting class with a comparison of one of Matt Rhule's recruiting class. So in 2018, Scott Frost's recruiting class was ranked at 23rd going into the year. When the year was over, it was re-ranked at 69th. Matt Rhule in 2018, his class was ranked at 24th going into the year, 24th going into the year, and it was re-ranked at the end of the year at 14th. So Scott Frost's class got 50 places worse, and Matt Rhule's class peaked the top 15 when he was done with it. So what his MO is developing players.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
No. Yeah. If you remember, be a little bit nicer to Scott Frost. Remember how much attrition, how many players
Well, that's
left?
why. Well, that's why you got to recruit the right guys that won't attrish.
No attrition. No, you're right.
Attrish.
You're right. You're right there. But that's why it was so steep as well. But you're right. Player development, that's everything.
Right.
Because you can recruit to a place, you can really want to go there. They can say all the right things. It can look really, really good. You get in there and you're in the day-to-day and you went, oh, this is completely different. This isn't what they told me. This isn't what I signed up for. Bye. And that's not like, oh, I'm not going to play. It's like, I want to be successful in my career. Can this do it? So Matt Rhule's done that in a lot of different places. So I don't know.
Yeah. So let's get into the details of his contract real quick. He's getting paid $9 million a year over the course of 8 years, which is $74 million total. It makes him a top 10 paid coach in college football. He's got a $7 million assistant pool. Scott had 5.5, and when I checked some sources, Wisconsin has much less than 7 as well. So we have a huge salary pool for him to dip into for assistants as well. So hopefully. So he addressed that at the press conference. I feel like we should just get to that right off the bat.
Yeah.
So he addressed the Mickey question in the press conference, and we can go ahead and talk about it. Let me share the screen.
Ah, you got a clippy clip.
I got a clippy clip, of course,
All right.
man. Always.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, 2516. Here it is.
Have you had a chance to talk with Mickey Joseph? There's a lot of interest in him around here after the job he did. And what goes into the considerations of possibly retaining people who were on the staff?
Yeah, I reached out to Mickey right when I got the job. I'm looking forward to talking to him at some point here and talking to the rest of the staff. I've been on both sides of it. I've been an assistant coach on a staff that's been let go, and I've always appreciated the coach coming in and talking to me. So I'll try to be thorough with that process over the next couple days. My family will go back tomorrow, and the most important things to me right now are the current players. I need to sit down with them and talk to them, right? Like they know the issues in the program more than anyone else, good and bad. And I say issues, I mean like good things. Hey, this is great. Hey, so I need to talk to the players, and I need to talk to the staff and coaches. To me, it all comes down to fit. People have to want to be here, number one. They have to want to be in the role that they're in. And, we have to all move forward. Again, when I've not had success, it's when, some people are pulling in one direction. There will be a very clear vision, a very clear process for how we do things within the walls of the football program and, within the X's and O's. And so any staff member that's bought into that, I'd love to talk to. And I agree. I think Mickey did a fantastic job. And I've known Coach Joseph for a while before that, not personally, but professionally. Excellent recruiter. Players love him. So I'm anxious to have a chance to visit with him and the rest of the staff.
Hey.
Yeah. So
what's your first thought when you hear that?
Yeah, no. For what that tells me is I haven't talked to Mickey. I don't know how he feels about me getting hired after he had the job. You could tell he was passionate about it. He's a Nebraska guy, Mickey is. So like he wants to be here. But if he's not going to, if their visions don't line up, I don't think it's going to fit. But if they have the conversation, they're both on the same page, I think he would love to have him. I really do. So he would be stupid not to, because Mickey has the locker room. Rhule's trying to get the locker room.
Right.
What's the one thing, if you want to keep these players, which It sounds like he does. I was actually listening to. I just watched an interview with Casey Thompson. That he called Casey, and Casey seemed like he was dealing with some injury stuff. He looked cold because they were doing it outside. But he sounds like it was a good conversation, and he's like, yeah. I mean, he told me that he wants me here and wants me to be a quarterback. So they
talked for an hour. I saw that interview too. They talked for an hour.
Yeah, you don't talk for an hour and not come away. Like you either like, okay, I'm transferring, or you don't go out and do an interview like that.
It's hard to talk to somebody that you haven't met over the phone for an hour if you don't click a little bit.
Yeah,
that's what I'll say about that.
Yeah. So, but my point is, like, if he wants the locker room right now, he's gonna try to make it work with Mickey. If their visions line up, I'm feeling a lot more hopeful than I was, when they hired him. I really am. I'm a little bit more hopeful. So
listen, this is a tidbit from Sam McCowan, Omaha World Herald. Quote, word is Mickey has asked for a long and expensive contract, which he rightfully should. Good for him, which he rightfully should. But the other thing you said, which is that Mickey has the locker room, which I agree with, and which there's a good reason for that. He's a leader of men as well. But there's things to have to do with the dynamic of a football team where it's like, if say they start out the year next year and it's not going how they want it to go, would you want half of your team sidebarring and talking to Mickey Joseph and Mickey maybe?
You're right.
You know what I mean?
No, you're right.
I'm not. It doesn't mean anybody involved is a bad person. That's not what I'm saying. But like you said, it has to align. And sometimes two good people who are two good coaches just don't align on something. So I hope it does. I was really hoping that we would have some sort of definitive answer coming out of this press conference. We don't. Quick. I think we will in the next couple of days, tomorrow or Wednesday. But I will say, I really want Mickey here. I hope it can work out, because I really want to keep watching his interviews. He's really fun to watch.
Yes. And Rhule, actually, like, just the way he talks and everything, him and Mickey sound a lot alike.
Values-wise.
Values-wise, players first, really that relationship building.
Right.
The thing that, Scott Frost didn't really click that way. And he was just bad at press conferences.
He came into his press conference, his introductory press conference, and I know I've said this a million times, but he came into his introductory press conference the first year for a team that just recently got into a 115-year-old football conference, and he goes, I'm going to make that 115-year-old football conference bend to me. You know what I mean? And it's like, at the time, we were all like, yeah. But like now looking back at it, it's like, damn. And that's one of the things, like, I have another quote from Rhule, 1723. Hang on, let me go share screen. He when he talks, and I know that the crazy thing is he's never coached in the Big Ten, right? But when he talks, he sounds like a Big Ten coach. His philosophy sounds like a Big Ten coach.
Because he played there.
Well, no, 100% he played there, but we're talking about. Hang on.
Every day.
Just listen to this.
That's sort of our vision for how we are. We're not going to be a new spread teams, and we're not going to be like that. We're going to be a little bit more of an old school type of a team. Okay, we're going to be a physical team. We'll be balanced, and you guys. I know you guys ask lots of questions. We'll always try to do what the players do well, but at the end of the day, I don't believe you can win if you can't win the line of scrimmage. We want to have fast players, explosive players. We want to have speed. We want to have great quarterback play. But at the end of the day, through the weight room and recruiting, we want to have a physical team that can control the line of scrimmage and control the game. I believe that's the type of team that can win in the elements. That's the type of team that can win on the road. That's the type of team that can have a lead and keep a lead. That's the type of team that Nebraskans want to see.
Then one more I got that's on the same topic. Sip, ask a question.
Welcome to Lincoln, Coach. You talked about the line of scrimmage, and I'm wondering a couple things. Did the line of scrimmage come up in the interview process, and why are you confident that you can fix that part, enhance that part?
Yeah, I think when I talked to Trev, we talked a lot about just, hey, what's your philosophy, right? So if you found a player that played for me at any of the three places, they'll probably say 5 or 6 things. Don't beat ourselves, win the line of scrimmage. Which means run the ball and stop the run, protect and affect the passer. So there's core tenets that I believe in. How you get there. At Temple, we were a fullback in the I formation, and occasionally spread out. When I was at Baylor, I had 4 NFL wide receivers. We were spread out, but at the end of the day, the offensive linemen and the defensive linemen in high school football, college football, and in the NFL, they determine it. So in terms of getting there, I'm walking in a little bit blind in terms of, I've seen the games on TV. I've had a chance to watch. This process has gone on so long, so I've had a chance. But, I'll have to get into spring. I'll have to see where we are to know that. But for me, it's just a vision. A vision doesn't mean that's the picture that's here. The picture that's here, I have to get into that. But the vision is to build up front, and that's not just recruiting. That's also the weight room. That's also the way that we want to train. And I'm confident because we've done that at Temple. I think right now there's 24 guys playing in the National Football League from Temple and Baylor combined, and none of those guys were 4- and 5-star recruits. But we were able to develop them, so that'll be our plan here as well.
So when I hear that, the first thing that comes to mind is that sounds like a Big Ten West coach.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And while we've talked about the Big Ten West brand of football is not necessarily the most fun brand of football to watch, but having strong line of scrimmage at the core as the core tenet of your team, which allows you to not give up games when you have the lead, stop the run, have a power run system, develop players. All that stuff is just like music to my ears because it felt like pulling teeth to get Scott Frost to admit that that's what he wanted to do. Because what was Scott Frost? We're going to get speed. We're going to get speed. We're going to get speed. That's mostly what he harped on was we're just going to be a fast team. We're going to play fast, no fear of failure, fast, all that stuff. And
he did say stuff about the line of scrimmage, but it never showed on the field.
Sure, 100%. And his style of football is not necessarily conducive for that either.
Yeah, and you have to also remember, press conferences and all this other stuff. I mean, if you've been following the game long enough, if you're somebody that just has been a casual football fan and then you start listening to press conferences, you can hype yourself up a lot.
Oh, 100%.
There's a lot of coach speak.
No doubt.
And it only matters what happens on the field. And again, that's what I keep coming back to, what's going to happen on the field. And I made a joke about it earlier, like the exception to the rule. But if I watch NFL a lot more than you do, he never had a consistent quarterback in Carolina.
Yeah, it's hard.
Never did. And
it's hard when you don't.
Especially in the National Football League. Yeah. He had a premier running back. McCaffrey was a premier running back. He always gets hurt. He always gets dinged up, misses a few games here and there, but he's a premier running back. But if you do not have a premier quarterback, you can't win.
Yeah, McCaffrey's great, but in my opinion, he's not the type of running back that you can build an entire team around. You know what I mean? He's good.
He's not going to be able to run it 30 times a game.
No. But he will maybe give you 15 or 20, and they'll be damn good ones. But yeah, so I agree with that. I mean, the other thing you think about when it comes to his NFL tenure is I wrote this down because I just thought of it. Do you think Bob Stoops would have been a good NFL coach? Mike Gundy, Dabo Swinney? Shoot, Saban sucked. You know what I mean? Look at all these college coaches that you look at and you're like, man, they probably would not be an NFL fit. And to me, that's sort of how I see Rhule. He's such a personality or such a relationship guy. And that helps him build relationship with college coaches too. I mean, I heard someone, a reporter say this, that if you ask most high school coaches, I meant connecting with high school coaches. You ask most high school coaches in Texas who their favorite college coach is, a lot of them would say Matt Rhule, which is very, very, that says something about him. But like I said, a lot of these guys that I mentioned, Bob Stoops, Mike Gundy, Dabo Swinney, those guys are the first ones that came to mind that I'm like, those are college coaches. You know what I mean? And I feel like Matt Rhule sort of fits in that mold as well.
Definitely most of them, for sure. I think Stoops probably could have been a decent NFL coach.
He's the one that maybe jumped out at me that was like, it might work with Stoops. He's a pretty good detail guy.
The rest of them, probably, you're probably right, though.
Yeah. Even Saban had a terrible NFL tenure, and then but what did he do? He comes back and he starts being a college football coach, but with an NFL coach mindset where he's running his team like a business. And that's sort of why it's intriguing to me. I don't have this on quote, but Matt Rhule was asked, do you think that your time in the NFL brings you back more prepared for this,
Yes.
basically? And he said, absolutely. Like the amount he learned in the NFL, he is very excited to get to work as a college coach again. And I'm excited to watch. So,
Listen,
yeah.
for as many times as a college coach has gone to the NFL and then, come back to college and squandered, there's success stories about failed NFL coaches coming back and then just learning something
Yep.
that they took back and then started, just doing real well.
Yep.
So, and guess what? NFL coaches don't do well in college either. It goes both ways.
It does. It does.
They're two different animals.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's funny. I wrote down press conference timestamps, quote, fire and brimstone, because he just reminds me of like a Baptist preacher when he talks. I felt like I was at church. There's just like a tempo and like a tone to how he's talking that totally sounds like a preacher.
Yeah, he sounded like Jerry Falwell.
But there's one part of the press conference that I wanted to go ahead and point out that I was like, yeah, that was the biggest Kool-Aid moment of the press conference to me, and it's right
I know
here.
what you're about to play.
It's right here.
Because this is the right fit. It's the right time. And if I have one message for you, we can absolutely do it. We can absolutely get the University of Nebraska and University of Nebraska football exactly where it's supposed to be. It will be hard. It may take time, but it will be done. So thank you, Trev. Thank you, President Carter, for setting a vision for us that made us decide to call this home. I want to echo what Trev said. I thought it was awesome watching the team on Friday play against Iowa, and I'm sitting there watching it and trying to figure out, hey, is this going to be the team that I coach next year? Coach Joseph and his staff just showing tremendous leadership. The players on that team, I've had a chance to meet the team, talk to some guys, just showing the leadership to keep that team together. And again, that's what I hope that I bring. Because if there's one thing I've learned in the last couple of years after my foray in college, in the National Football League, it's that anybody can lead when things are easy. That's convenient leadership. Who steps up when things are hard? Who stepped up for this team in the middle of the season when the coach is gone and guys can go either way? Like, who steps up when we haven't had the success as a program that we want? Who's going to step up and fill the void, stand in the gap? And I'm honored that I've been chosen for that. And I'm just one small piece of it. Leadership isn't just a position, it's a way of life. And I hope, and I'll start today, I can promise you this, I'm going to rip this suit off sometime tonight, and I'm going to go back to my office, and I'm going to start to recruit, and I'm going to start to do all the things. But I am honored to say that I have a chance to lead this football program.
Yeah. And when I was watching that live for a second there, like, the head coach is fired, who's going to step up? And I just thought he was going to really dote on Mickey for a second. And he's like,
I thought so too.
And he's like, and I'm honored to be that person. And I was just like, oh, you missed an opportunity for some ass kissing there.
No, I just love that we can absolutely do it. I mean, he's just so confident in the way he talks about it. And he's confident for a reason. He has the track record that shows that this guy is a detail-oriented guy who can come into situations and repair things. Now, here's the most interesting thing here going forward. Who is this guy going to choose for his staff? Now, I have a couple of tidbits for you. We hired a guy, Evan Cooper. He was a recruiting guy, defensive backs guy. He led the way for 2 top 35 classes with Baylor. So that's a hire, and he already has his Nebraska profile picture and everything, so he's hired. Offensive coordinator. Okay, this is an interesting one. Offensive coordinator is rumored to be Marcus Satterfield from South Carolina. Marcus Satterfield has worked with Rhule a number of times. He's always had successful offenses pretty much everywhere he's gone, and his offense at Carolina this year was a high and low offense. It was a little bit of a crap show for a little bit of it, but they just beat 2 really good teams in Tennessee and who else did they beat? Tennessee and LSU, was it? No, A&M beat LSU. Tennessee and who else? Clemson, that's who it was. Yeah, I forget about Clemson.
Yeah,
everyone forgets about Clemson. Yeah. They just, literally the other day. Anyway, so they beat 2 teams and had 2 great offensive performances there. So Spencer Rattler is is the quarterback for South Carolina this year. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just share this because I don't want to spread any rumors, but
I don't want albino Jesus.
News out of Carolina. South Carolina QB Spencer Rattler will be entering the transfer. Yeah, you can read it. Rattler is believed to be headed to Nebraska with former OC Marcus Satterfield, who just joined Matt Rhule's staff. How real is this? Now, look at, this guy has 4,100 followers, number one breaking news reporter in South Knoxville. Who knows who that is? He doesn't have a check, which, as we know, means less and less these days. That's interesting at the very least. Marcus Satterfield is coming, which is the OC for South Carolina. And here's what you got to know about Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler has had one of the most watched and tenuous careers in college football so far. He's looked great in certain moments, and he's looked really bad in other moments. Kid. But the funny thing about him is, dude, the last 3 or 4 games this year, he really, really started to look like he was coming into his own. And he's got a lot of core tools that would make him great. Now, I think Casey might come back, but we're just speculating right now. We're just speculating. I just wanted to make it a thing that we put it on this podcast just in case that happens.
That's fine. I've made my opinion on this podcast reaching back into last year, known on Spencer Rattler.
Yes.
So no. Please no. I don't. This would be the equivalent, like to me, of getting Adrian with Scott Frost in his first year. I mean, Spencer is not a freshman, but that's the type of player he is. He's so hot and cold.
He is. He was recruited by Lincoln Riley, though. I mean, and Lincoln Riley has proved himself this year.
Well, yes, but who did he bench for?
Yeah, 100%. But who did he recruit? I mean, Caleb Williams is the best quarterback in college this year, in my opinion. You watch that dude; he is so good. Have you watched their games? Blake, he is amazing.
He's really good.
He's amazing. He's not really good. He's amazing.
No, but also, some of the plays Bryce Young can make are just crazy.
100%. But Caleb Williams is just as good as Bryce Young. He's bigger and stronger. That's what makes him interesting. He is, in my opinion, probably going to be the next. I don't want to make a remark on a quarterback's NFL career because you just never know. But he's looking like Pat Mahomes right now.
He's the next Jalen Hurts.
I mean, Jalen Hurts looks pretty good this year, man. So I mean, that's not a knock on him. That's not a knock on him. So some more staff stuff. Terrence Knighton, defensive line coach, supposedly. But then, and I'll share this screen because nothing's been confirmed, but this is, to me, as close as confirmed can get, which
Mark
is
Whipple's back.
Elijah Robinson. Elijah Robinson is the associate head coach, defensive line coach of A&M, and he was ranked by 247 as the number one recruiter of the nation, and he was a pivotal part of A&M's, quote, number one recruiting class of all time. Now, that is intriguing to me. Now you could harp on, A&M had horrible attrition this year and what was a horrible team. I agree with that, but he's a heck of a recruiter, and it's been noted time and time again. So if that is true, and like I said, there was a tweet of him. I don't know if I just explained what that tweet was at all. Let me share it again. But there was a tweet of him where, go to his likes on his profile, and I checked this myself. Excited to be reoffered by the University of Nebraska at Coach Matt Rhule at Cy Woodland. Now, who knows what the connection is? That could be like one of this dude's players that he just knows and he's just happy for him. That could be all it is. But if you're a recruiting coordinator for a certain university, you don't like offers from other schools. So that is a little bit intriguing to me. Plus the rumor about Elijah Robinson. I've been there all week, but nobody had any connection until about 3 hours ago when he liked that tweet.
I mean,
so that's intriguing.
And I'm excited to see the coaches he gets and all this stuff. And it's going to be fast. He even said it's going to be fast because they have some work to do. I don't know if I said it on the podcast or just between the two of us. Because if it wasn't Matt Rhule, then it was a couple other people. And if it was Matt Rhule, it was going to be announced when it was announced, because there's no point in waiting. You need to hit the ground running, and you need to start. Getting things done.
Rip that suit off and go, boy. Get them sweats on and start visiting people's houses.
The sweats and the vests. But time will tell. Time will tell.
Time will tell.
I'm not so excited that I have blinders on anymore, because after Scott Frost, you really can't. Because that looked like a home run, and we know how that played out. So only time will tell if
Scott Frost was a dictator, we would be guilty of very horrible things. Because we would have just followed that dude.
But time will tell if he's Scott Frost in a vest or something better.
Right.
So
also we hired Campbell. We hired Corey Campbell as strength and conditioning coach.
Where's he been?
He was at Baylor, I believe. I don't have a whole lot on that guy. To be honest,
great.
I don't have a whole lot on that guy. I've had a lot. Give me a break, okay? I've had a lot. I don't have a whole lot on that guy. I had a lot on Marcus Satterfield and Elijah Robinson, and then of course Mickey, which to me fits right into the mold of what Matt Rhule described as an assistant coach. He said literally verbatim, I want a coach who's not a celebrity coach who will just go to one school. I want a coach who's just a grinder who will go to 6 schools. And what did I say earlier on this podcast about the way Mickey and his staff hit the road when they took over? They hit the road. I mean, we were visiting more schools than we had visited in the past by threefold in some cases when we had time. So again, we hope Mickey's retained, but I'm cautiously optimistic with the press conference today. I'm not going to say I'm full on drinking the Kool-Aid or anything like that. Again, Matt Rhule probably wasn't my first choice. Seeing the press conference, it seems like a fit. I'm cautiously optimistic, but we'll see. It's going to be fun. We finally have a coach. Look, you and I have been banging our heads against the wall for about 72 days, basically. It was getting like I felt like I was in a dream, just like talking about the same thing over and over again. We lost again. Who's the coach going to be? And now here we are. We beat Iowa. And now we have a new coach, and his name's Matt Rhule. And like I said, he's a family guy. He's got what seems like a very nice family. His family is very important to him. I think that's important in the type of community that Nebraska is. Like, people wanted Lane Kiffin a lot, right? But you can't have your coach hammered at the rail yard hitting on girls. And I'm not saying Lane Kiffin would have been that, but come on. People know about Lane Kiffin. So
he would have been.
yeah. And I don't think Matt Rhule will. So
no. He respects his wife, so hopefully,
And I don't think he's a golfer either. He doesn't have very many hobbies. That's the thing the things that Trev laid out in his, and I know a lot of people have said this because I've been watching a lot of podcasts, but the things that Trev laid out in his press conference for after he addressed the crowd firing Scott Frost, detail-oriented, grinder, doesn't have hobbies. And that pretty much describes Matt Rhule to a T. His only hobby is his family. Besides that, he is a football coach, first and foremost. Do you have any final thoughts on this whole thing?
No. I'm excited that we can stop speculating.
Agreed.
Husker Nation was getting very infuriating to just, be around.
I feel like I just popped a giant pimple.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say
that's what it feels like,
I was gonna say something worse, and I'm not going to. But you're right, and I'm excited that we can finally move on, and we can move on to the next season. It'll be interesting to see how many of these players he can keep. Lots of talent there. If I was a betting man, Nelson's still going to be there. If that Rattler thing is real, I think Case could probably beat him.
Potentially, it'll be a battle, no doubt about it. It would be a battle. It would be a battle.
They're very similar play styles, but anyways.
So in the December month, this is going to be a wild December month for Nebraska news. We just got a new head coach. There's going to be assistant coaches that are going to be hired. There's going to be players that transfer here, players that transfer out, players that commit, all that type of stuff. So during the month of December and maybe a little bit into January, I say we probably still go about once a week just to catch back up on where we are now. There's going to be a lot to talk about once the season
news permitting.
100%.
News permitting. And again, we'll go live here. It's Monday now because we felt like we had to do it a day early. But
it was the perfect day. I'm glad because we took a long break, and I'm glad we gave it a couple days for the hire to really settle on us.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we would have had a bit of an emotional podcast on Saturday, whenever it was. So I'm glad we were able to at least look at this objectively. But so we should go once a week for a little bit, and then when it quiets down, we'll go maybe twice a month or something like that.
Like Tuesday 7:30. So basically, if you hear news, we're gonna come on and talk about it. Even if it's just for 20 minutes. So Tuesday 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central.
And if you're watching us right now on YouTube, we really appreciate it. We love the support. We would love for you to subscribe and give us a like, and go ahead and comment whatever you think about our podcast, whatever you think about Nebraska, the hire, Matt Rhule, anything like that. And also go ahead and follow us on Twitter at Husker Corner. If you follow us, I'll follow you back. I'll give you a follow back. Free follow. Just go ahead and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram, Cornhusker Corner. All righty. That was a jam-packed episode.
Yes, it was, but that's going to be it for us today on Cornhusker Corner. Always remember that there's no place like
this podcast.